Now we can negotiate.
You have to negotiate, and you're like, nope,
It's 8 o'clock.
it's 8 o'clock.
It's 7:30 because it's a short event.
So, because the long agenda is here, they not-
Do it.
You say 7:30, I'm gonna say 9. 9.
9.
You're just.
We're recording.
We are recording.
Don't really get to yes.
I don't care. I got the no button for a reason.
I am watching all in this, so I'm. I can. There's a.
Think about that, we could agree to 7:30 and it would be even faster to get with.
Okay. Okay, I will go ahead and get this meeting started. It is September 19th, 2024. This is our regularly scheduled City of Glenwood Springs City Council meeting. City Clerk, will you please take roll?
Mayor Wusa,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Dame, Councilor Godis, Councilor Zelinski, Councilor Weimer, Councilor Kaup,
Here.
Councilor Schachter. We have a quorum.
Do we have any agenda changes or conflicts? I'll take that as a no. Any council announcements for upcoming events? Councilor Godis.
I think this is an appropriate announcement. It's always been announced that Councilor Kaup is resigning from city council. And Ryan, just for the public, we decided on publication dates of.
Oh, hold on.
There's actually an agenda item on this.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Okay. There's a agenda item coming up on that, so we will address that at that time. Counselor Zelinski.
I just want to inform everybody that the airport is going to be holding an open house. It's on Saturday, September 28th. The hours are 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. They're going to have all sorts of like informational things. They're going to have some planes out there to look at. They're going to have, I can't remember what it's called, the Young Eagles, I think it's called. So they're gonna have the Young Eagles
Yeah.
out there. So it's gonna be an opportunity for youth that's interested in aviation to get rides. So it's gonna be an awesome event. So again, that's Saturday, September 28th, between the hours of 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. So
Yep.
hopefully that will be well attended. And then also I want to welcome a new member to our Vail board. That'll be on our consent agenda this evening. And as always, I invite anybody from the community who's interested to look at available open seats on our boards and commissions. It's a great way to get involved and understand what's going on in the city. Thank you.
And as a reminder, that event out at the airport is being run by the nonprofit that the city leased the airport to. So it's an opportunity for them to celebrate the new situation they have out there, which is exciting. So anybody else? We will go ahead and open the floor to citizens appearing before council. This is for anybody, items that are not on this evening's agenda. Doesn't look like anybody is here to do that. So we'll go ahead and close that portion of the agenda and move on back to council for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Councilor Dunn.
I would move that we approve tonight's consent agenda. Seconded.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We will go ahead and get going right away. Item number 1, 27th Street underpass update.
Let me know. Just go there and share your screen. Whoops. Sure. That was exciting.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. My name is Ben Ludlow, the RAFTA Capital Projects Interim Director now.
Oh, congratulations.
We have a new department. And I'm here to give you an update on the 27th Street and Highway 82 underpasses project. And I think this is probably going to be my last update.
Nice.
Did you get enough candy? That's the question. It's gotta last a long time.
You come back anyway?
This project's currently nearing completion again with a projected early finish, and it's within budget. Looking at these first photos here, this is the 27th Street underpass progress photos. As you can see, looking to the south on the Rio Grande Trail, to the left there, you'll see the entrance to the Highway 82 underpass tunnel. We have completed our painting, which is actually called structural concrete coating, inside the tunnels. We've also completed our anti-graffiti paint on all the walls and inside the tunnel. That's why if you look at it now, it's kind of shiny, looks kind of cool. The photo on the right shows the interior of the Highway 82 tunnel, and then the bottom right is the lighting inside the tunnels. Here we are on the Rio Grande Trail here at the corner, the northwest corner of 27th and Highway 82. This is the 27th Street underpass in the picture here. To the right, you'll see the 27th Street sidewalk that runs along 27th towards the 27th Street tunnel. And the last photo on the right shows our lighting. That's our downcast lighting. That's throughout the project. You can see the poles in a few places. This photo shows, this is an older photo from a couple weeks ago, the right-hand turn lane in the, it's kind of the, we call it the pork chop island there, where the signal is on the northwest corner of Highway 82 and 27th Street. And we also see the guardrail along 27th. In the background, there is a concrete barrier wall that has now been completed with our new curb and gutter and guardrail in that location. Here's a picture of Ingrid. That was at the grand opening. Traffic impacts coming up. We'll be winding down. Right now, we're wrapping up phase 1, which is the plaza where the snow melt is on the east side of Highway 82. Where you come down to the portal. We're finishing our handrail and remaining lights. Beginning of October will be the completion of the pedestrian components, landscaping, and we will have substantial completion at the beginning of October, which is great news. Also, one of the things that we'll be looking at for a traffic impact will be in the middle of, I'm sorry, the first week of October, we will be doing a milling of the entire intersection and putting new pavement down and new epoxy painting to make a nice smooth intersection instead of the patchwork that we have right now. Mid-October will be punch list and demobilization, and then the grand opening celebration will occur the afternoon of the 15th. We are having a little scheduling issues with Senator Bennett's office right now, so we've moved out from the morning to the afternoon. Official announcement, once we hear from Senator Bennett, I believe will come out. We wanted to have it out to everybody Monday, and it took a left-hand turn that we weren't prepared for. And that's kind of it. You know, again, I just want to really thank the incredible support I get from the City of Glenwood Springs, Public Works, Engineering, the Police Department, and of course, traveling public. Big thanks to Myers and Sons for this construction project. They did a great job for us. And a big thank you to City Council for your wonderful support throughout this project. And I just had some fun facts because I don't know, every once in a while I might read some social media. Basalt underpass was one underpass and it took 17 months to build. The AABC underpass, both these were my projects also that I did, was one underpass and took 14 months to build. We finished this project with 2 underpasses in 17 months. And another fun fact, peak traffic for 2024 was in August with 28,498 ADTs. So we have a lot of traffic in Glenwood right now. And with the installation of these underpasses will make that signalized intersection move a lot smoother without having a pedestrian phase. Do you have any questions for me, Council?
How's your mental health after it?
It's hard to believe when I say this, but man, this is the smoothest project I've ever been involved in. It really
Great.
is.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you. Thank you for the fortitude because it's not easy to do such a community interacting project, right? Like these are huge projects that like they slow everything down and they hopefully will speed everything up and keep everyone safe. But in the meantime, we know how much time and energy you put into it. And we also know that your skin is a little bit thicker.
Hair's a little grayer, a little less.
Anybody else? Counselor Godus, better be nice.
I just want to say thank you. Sounds like you're getting better at these underpasses. As somebody who drives that intersection and my family drives it every day, I think you guys have done a really good job of communicating and keeping the
Yeah.
traveling public as aware as we can be, and keeping them, if you could only, coordinate lane closures with not having the canyon shut down, that'd be even better. But I know you can't control acts of God. So I appreciate everything you guys have done. It's been a great project, and I think the public is going to really, really appreciate the final product.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think that's a wrap.
I gotta find a reason to come back.
Yeah, right? Come back and take advantage of public comments. You get 3 minutes.
Thank
Okay, we'll miss you guys coming for candy. Okay, item number 14, Mind Springs update.
Just minimize and accept that. And right there, double click that, open that back up. It's right there. Right there. Yeah, the zoom back up. Maximize the zoom. Yeah, now share your screen. Yeah. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, Madam Mayor, City Council, thanks for having us. Hans Luckering, the Regional Outreach Director for Mind Springs Health. And that's probably all I'm gonna say tonight. I'm gonna get out of the way and let these my experts kind of take control. Amy Cooper, our Executive Vice President of Operations, and Andre Gosweiler, who's our program coordinator, lead program coordinator, essentially in charge of the withdrawal management program here for Glenwood Springs. And we will dive into some updates for you.
Yes, thank you for your time this evening. We are very, very excited to have launched this program and to be on to the next phase of operating. So a few success stories to get us started. So one, we have really seen this be a transformative program for the patients who have come through. Over 76% of our clients who have been through the program have engaged in some form of aftercare, which is actually a really high transition rate as compared to most withdrawal management or detox programs. So we're really, really proud of that. A few other things, we are fully staffed on our medical team now, which is always a challenge in the community, but we are fully up and running. We've got our case management team up and going, including running relapse prevention groups, other coping mechanisms to help people just, what are you going to do? How are you going to tackle this going forward in your life? So we've got our case management and therapy team up and doing that. And we also launched our secure transportation program this month. So what that does is really coordinates between our hospitals and EMS systems to make sure that we are able to pick up patients when they're ready, wherever they're at in the community, or pick them up from the emergency department if they're not voluntarily willing to come with us, and then bring them to our facility. So lots of early wins here in the first couple months. As far as our impact, we have served over 34 patients at this point in time, which we're really proud of. Some of those are 34 unique clients. So we have seen a few people come more than once, which is what we would typically expect. Like I said earlier, we were at 75, we're now at 76. This is a few days old. As far as patients engaging in follow-up care, we've had 10 clients who have gone directly into our residential program after being in the withdrawal management, and 4 who were accepted into sober living. So again, we're really seeing that transition to long-term sustained recovery. So a few numbers for you. This can be a little hard to read here, but in blue, we've got our Grand Junction numbers from 2023 before the program here was opened. And then we've got our gold is the Glenwood Springs data since we've opened in June. So as you can see, we had a soft opening where we had about 3 clients who came in June, and we've seen that number triple in the last couple months here, and we'll continue to see that increase as we continue to see the awareness of the program grow. So as far as our data tracking, on the left there, you've got admission numbers. So we're looking at how many folks have come through the program. And in blue, those are individual. That orange color, those are readmissions. So meaning somebody who's come through more than once. And like I said, that is expected to a certain extent. Sometimes it takes a few times. And if you're familiar with recovery, it's that drop in the bucket analogy. Sometimes you got to have a drop in, and every drop makes an impact, and eventually your bucket is full. And then we've got referrals over on the right. So those are all the facilities we've received referrals from. So as you can see, walk-ins are still our #1 referral source, but we are working with several of the local hospitals as well. All right, a few more data points. These are looking at the residents of where folks are coming from. So we have seen that a few folks we haven't been able to track their residents, but for the most part, these are Garfield County residents, with, Glenwood Springs being a significant referral source, as well as Carbondale and Aspen being the top 3. And then on the right, we're showing our insurance. So this is something we'll get into a little bit more, but you can see that over on the far right, in those self-pay and other buckets, those are typically unfunded clients. So that is something we're going to talk about when we get to the budget, because that is something, unfortunately, that has changed. Not in our favor, but we are working to address some of the solutions to make sure that we close that gap. Like I said, we launched secure transportation. So a huge thanks to several of you who were involved in those conversations and working with the county to get that launched. So we've been working with several of the local hospitals, again, picking folks up, getting them to where they need to be. So those are just a few pictures of our updated vehicles. So I won't spend too much time here, but just a reminder that we are medically managed level of care. So that was an increase in what we had initially planned several years ago, which was a social model. So having those medications, it's almost every patient that has come through our doors has received some type of medication to help them withdraw from the substance they're coming in with. And what that does is it makes the experience more comfortable for them, and it gets them to the next level of care instead of going back to what they were previously doing. So again, we're seeing that higher rate of transition. This is kind of the model that the country and nationally we're going to. And so we wanted to make sure we brought that here, and we've done that successfully so far. All right, so to the budget, the piece I think that we all want to talk about. So our fiscal year 25 budget does show a projected gap in where we need to get to breaking even. I think you were all sent a budget. We actually have been able to revise that and rework that a little bit. So that's going to be sent out again after this. Those numbers did get better, which we're really grateful for. But we're still going to have to continue to make sure that we have an awareness of the program out there, and that we're continuing to work with all of those referral sources. I think you saw in the middle that there were several referrents who we haven't heard from. So we need to do additional outreach in those areas. To some of the counties, to EMS, and then to some of the other programs in the area who also support individuals who are working their way through substance use. So again, that updated budget will come. Those numbers that gap has already shrunk a little bit. But any questions?
Apparently not.
And we'll continue to provide data through the governance committee, and are happy to come and connect at any point.
Counselor Wyman.
Go up a couple of slides. I think it was your intake. And there was an other category, and I was curious, the referrals. That,
Yes, for insurance or
no,
for
no, go,
other
I think
referrals.
go up again. I think it's, there you go. Referrals. Underneath the window that's on in the foreground. And underneath the invite.
Yes.
It says other. I was just curious what, walking, I understand everything except for the,
Yes, other kind of contains, and there's a number of different recovery organizations within the valley or as well that are either tangentially related to the clients that then refer them into us. So obviously like AA is going to be included in our recovery community, but then there are others such as Discovery Cafe, Red Point, are other community partners that are likely to refer them. So people like Jay Walker might refer people into us. We needed a catch-all for,
sure.
not everyone falls nicely into our recovery community or walk-in categories.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Counselor Kaup.
Hi, thank you for this update. So I did have a question on the Grand Junction facility. Will that be staying in operation then?
Yes, we will continue to operate that facility.
Okay. And then do you have a listing in the budget of who the other contributors are to the Glenwood Springs facility? Like who is contributing to the revenue to keep that running?
Yeah, so that is a combination of 7 municipalities and two hospitals.
2 hospitals.
Okay, thank you. And we can certainly list that out. The municipalities are all within Garfield County, and then the 2 hospitals are also within Garfield County, being Valley View and Grand River.
Okay, and is there still a facility open in Pitkin County?
I believe there is.
There is, and it is the social setting model, and it has always been specifically really dedicated to Pitkin County residents only.
Okay.
It was, and it's not the medically managed model that we have here, and I think that, in addition to being best practices from a national perspective, it certainly also provides incredible value to our hospital emergency departments, and I think also from an ease of access standpoint, because our paramedics or families can directly drop off at our doors and we do the medical clearances there. The
Okay.
model always relied on, you had to go to an emergency department, whether that was Aspen or Valley View or Grand River, to be medically cleared before coming to detox, which is not, that was never, I think, a great idea. So this
Okay.
certainly provides value in multiple facets.
All right, thank you. But Pitkin County is in none of the Pitkin County communities are contributing to this one. In Glenwood.
Not at this time, though that is a conversation we are trying to get started again.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shelley. Of the 34 patients that you guys were able to support, what are their demographics? Where did they come from?
So it's rather diverse, actually. So we do have a number of homeless and indigent clients that have come through that have gone in, but we also do see a lot of working class individuals. So everyone, it's really a wide assortment. To kind of put any one hat on it doesn't necessarily apply. Because we have people from all different funding sources or funding backgrounds. So be it in terms of their insurance or in terms of their housing status.
And did they identify as residents of Garfield County, or did they identify as residents from other areas?
So they have that number does include those outside of Garfield County as well, though, as you can see by our numbers, it's going to be reflective of the general.
So okay, thank you.
Yeah, so the majority of those who have come through the door have come from Garfield County.
They have come.
We
from
have seen
Garfield
some
County.
outliers, as you can see in like Snowmass and Aspen.
Okay, thank you.
And then
That
we
one
have folks
fast.
who are other that just didn't.
Okay.
And I think it's important to say that this data is very preliminary.
Yeah,
Especially
yeah.
in a soft opening phase,
Sure.
and now really are fully staffed.
Mhm.
And I think over the next few months, we'll have a better sense of what those actual demographics look
Mhm.
like.
And largely ahead of the launch of our secure transport as well, and our mobile recovery transport as well.
Okay, yeah, I think that's another thing I'd like you guys to kind of elaborate on, and that is so obviously 5 patients out of 34 were here, they were in Glenwood and could return to wherever they identify as home here. What about the other 29? Were there any challenges? How did that look? Because that was one of the big concerns we had, is like making sure they return to their community of origin.
Absolutely. And our case management works really hard to connect them into the best resource available to them. So we've had individuals as far as, Alamosa, I believe we had one from an outside state. And so those lead to some challenges with us being able to provide some levels of transport, but we do our best to work with that. By and large, we have had success in getting everyone to where they need to. No one has had to essentially be turned to the street after going through our services. And in any cases where that does happen in the future, we have had a very high percentage of getting everyone in with a follow-up appointment, being within our own services or externally, but depending on their needs. And then we also, as part of the mobile recovery team, follow up a minimum of 2 times with the individual in order to make sure that they're getting into the services or at least having the care and attention that they need for those wraparound services.
Okay, perfect. Counselor Zelinski.
So Counselor Cup asked one of my questions about Pitkin County, but I'm curious, in addition to the municipalities in Garfield County, is there any county support like directly from Garfield County?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Okay. You guys have any additional asks?
So we will be sending an invoice for
Mhm.
this next year's funding request. It will be the same as it was last year.
Okay.
So, and we hope that, again, we're gonna continue to look at the budget and some of those efforts to engage other stakeholders. And we hope to not have an increased ask next year, but do want to softly put that on the table if we're not able to close that gap and look at diversifying our payer mix a little bit.
Thank you. Counselor Godus popped on. I didn't see your light on.
No, I just popped up.
Okay.
I assume this is coming out of our tobacco marijuana fund?
Correct.
Any additional questions? Thank you guys so much for coming this evening. We really appreciate it. And we recognize that this is certainly still in its infancy, and it does look like it's off to a successful path forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your support. Thanks for being at the table. Can't do it without you guys. This is truly, I know that we're the operators, but this is a community project.
Mhm.
And it has to be that way.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Our engineer Ryan Gordon heading to the podium. Southbridge update.
Yeah, good evening, City Council. Ryan Gordon, City Engineer. So Southbridge update. I've been kind of a broken record of saying we anticipate this letter, but today the record is broken or not broken, or we actually have the letter is where I'm getting at with this whole thing. So we have authorization to proceed with design, and we have took the handcuffs off of Jacobs Engineering, and they're going full speed ahead. So what that really means is any monies that we spend now can be used against our obligation, our match obligation for the grant. So really positive news. It doesn't mean there's a whole lot going on because we were really slow rolling this. However, we have a meeting scheduled the first week in October with CDOT and then all the various reviewing agencies and members to really understand exactly what has to happen to get this project wrapped up. We're still planning to have the design done the end of September. We're going to be going over in this meeting in October various environmental documents, what that means, deadlines, right-of-way acquisition, and then some of the other peculiarities that are going on along with coordination with RAFTA. So we are starting to move ahead with some more momentum and force. That's what I got for you. Not a whole lot, but finally feels like we're breaking free here.
That has, feel great. Any questions? Counselor Godus.
Do you need anything from us? Do you need to approve additional funding for the Jacobs contract? Have we already done that? Are we?
No, I believe that was done a couple amendments ago.
Okay.
So we are in really good shape right now. So there's nothing that we need right now. Obviously, as we move into 2025, that could change depending on where we are. But certainly all the design monies for Jacobs has been approved. So we shouldn't have to ask for anything else for a while.
And when do we anticipate getting to, like, say, 90% design?
So I don't know 90%. So I know 50%. Is scheduled to be done around the end of October. A lot of the project has been done this October,
Oh,
so
wow.
6 weeks from now, right? And so, the big design effort from that perspective is the bridge and the associated changes we made. So we should be getting close to then, and at that point, then we can get a better sense for costs and whatnot as we move forward.
And when, ideally in our schedule, when are we hoping to take this out to bid?
Yeah, so we have our contract with Jacobs has them providing the final design drawings at the end of September. And so we could basically turn around then and go to bid quickly. We are still hoping that we get this out to bid, about 1 calendar year from today, plus a few weeks, and then probably construction starting sometime the very beginning of 2026 if all goes as planned.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a great update. Counselor Kelp.
Hi, Ryan. Thank you. I was curious so the monies for Jacobs were approved. I remember doing that at a prior meeting, approving that contract. Where is the money in the budget? And maybe this is a question for Steve, but I didn't see it in A&I for Southbridge. So I'm just wondering how much is funded for 2025 or anticipated, and where is that coming in the budget?
Yeah, so when you look at the 2024 budget, it was done in an amendment, right? And I think we appropriated $5 million. We're not going to spend anywhere near that. So in another appropriation, you guys will see a decrease to the $5 million we're going to spend this year, and then a carryover next year.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. And that, from my understanding, can that be charged against the grant funding then?
Yeah, so everything that is after, I believe it was September 10th, the morning of September 11th was the cutoff date. So prior to that, money spent, our obligation, the monies afterwards then can be used against that grant, our federal obligation match.
Perfect.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good to know. Okay. Any additional council questions? Okay, I'm going to open it up to public comment. I believe that Meryl Glickman is online and would like to speak. Meryl, you know the rundown, 3 minutes. Please state your name and if you live in city limits.
Yes, hi, this
Hi.
is Meryl Glickman. You can hear me, right? Yes.
Yeah.
And I live in city limits. I live in Cardiff by the road where Southbridge, the airport road where Southbridge will extend to. I have a question now that we have a plan and a construction set. And my question, which I'm sure is obvious to everyone, is what are the mitigations planned for Cardiff Glen, given all my comments? That's it. I'm done.
Great. Thank you for the question, Meryl. Right. So there'll obviously be a lot more traffic going through the South Glenwood neighborhoods. So variety of different mitigations that we're doing. Number one is when we initially changed the design from the tunnel and removed the tunnel, we induced a 25-mile-an-hour curve. And I just want to reiterate, we can't control where people drive, but we're sure going to try to control how they drive. So we induced this curve in order to slow traffic down as they're coming across the bridge by the airport. We're going to have various pedestrian crossings that we are looking to have speed tables. So think of something similar to what's outside Sopeless Elementary. Again, a way to get pedestrians safely across the road, but also a measure to keep speeds down. We will also have a traffic circle in the Cardiff Mesa neighborhood. Again, that will help to control speeds. And, those are the primary methodologies that we are going to control. We're certainly going to have this speed posted as 25 miles an hour. And then as we get through it, if we need to add more stop signs, whatnot, and we're talking with PD about enforcement. So those are those for the speeds. We haven't got to what we were going to do in front of the Cardiff Mesa neighborhood particularly, right? We know that a federally mandated sound wall was required. We are redoing that sound study. which may or may not require the wall. And we're having discussions on what that area looks like if it's not mandated. Certainly seems warranted there, some sort of fence to help and help that neighborhood. Haven't figured exactly what that is, but we kind of envision something kind of the back of the sidewalk to both prevent sound and noise, but then also to protect people and protect and maintain open space in the neighborhood. So nothing is certainly solid. And Mayor, just a real clarification or correction. We don't have plans yet. We're working towards them. So as we get those more mature, we will share those with the public and certainly with council.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. And thank you, Meryl, for keeping us on our toes and asking good questions. Ryan, thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks for
much.
the update.
Appreciate it.
Item number 16, Workforce Housing Fund Advisory Board. It appears we also have the introduction of a new employee.
Yes, we do. Hannah Klausman, Community and Economic Development Director, and I'm very excited to introduce to you Kevin Reyes, who is our new Housing Development Manager. Highly anticipated and much awaited.
Welcome.
Welcome. I promised I wouldn't throw him to the wolves, so I'm going to set him up with the presentation, and he's actually going to give it to you. So
are we wolves?
The sheep. Would we prefer sheep? Wolves, sheep, cheetahs, gazelles, sharks.
I don't know. Jonathan, you're unusually quiet down there. Do you not have an animal you would like to throw out as an alternative?
I'm just me. I prefer esteemed counselors.
Thank you.
My apologies. Madam Mayor and esteemed counselors. To come back up.
Kevin?
Share screen. And then I'll take this.
Good evening. It's good to meet everybody. Again, my name is Kevin Reyes. I'm the new housing development manager here. So I'm happy to be here and look forward to working with everybody. I'm just going to jump into this presentation here. It's pretty quick, but the request before council this evening is coming from the West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition. I'm going to call them the West Mountain for short, just because it's a bit of a mouthful there. Just a little bit of background on the West Mountain. I know this organization came before council not too far back, and council is probably somewhat familiar, but just to kind of spark everyone's memory, it's a local nonprofit, and their goal is to try to make addressing the housing crisis more of a regional goal, as opposed to just having individual municipalities siloed in the topic. So all up and down the valley, different municipalities and organizations have contributed to West Mountain. So that includes Carbondale, Basalt, Snowmass Village, Aspen, Eagle County, Pitkin County, CMC, and the Roaring Fork Transportation Authority. And then, of course, the town or the city of Glenwood Springs contributed $200,000 from the general fund to support the Good Deeds program from West Mountain. And that's actually the topic of tonight's discussion, is specifically good deeds, which I'm going to jump into now. So the Good Deeds program, just for, again, council is probably somewhat familiar, but I'll just run through how this works. The idea behind this is to help qualified locals between Aspen and Parachute purchase a house. So the West Mountain, the idea is West Mountain contributes 30% of the purchase price towards the house, and in exchange, a deed restriction is placed on the house, which ensures that that house is occupied by a full-time resident. And those deed restrictions are in perpetuity. And so as a result, the community gets a qualified family or resident to live in its community. So jumping from that into the subject of tonight, we actually have the first house that's under contract with West Mountain is closing tomorrow. It's a local family. They're closing tomorrow. The home is located in Glenwood Springs. The children attend local schools and the purchaser works at Valley View Hospital, which is obviously also located in Glenwood Springs. The purchase price is $705,000. And West Mountain is going to contribute 30% of that, which is $211,000 to buy down the home. And so the way this is going to work is the family is then going to purchase the house at the resulting price of $493,000. And so the price cap that would then go on there is based on that new purchase price. So I just want to point out these three things here. The fact that this house is in Glenwood Springs and this person works in Glenwood Springs. Because of that, this particular transaction is eligible for 2C funds, which is the subject of tonight's request. So the question before council is, are council members interested in contributing 2C funds towards the buy down of this request? And so I'll just run through what that would look like. So again, the purchase price of $705,000, 30% of that is $211,000. And we took this to the Workforce Housing Fund Advisory Board last week, and they recommended contributing 20% of the buy down price, which is just over $42,000. They put some conditions on that proposal, on that recommendation. One, it's basically in the event of a foreclosure or other involuntary conveyance on the property, a second right of refusal shall be granted to the city of Glenwood Springs. And then the second one is in the event that West Mountain ceases to exist, is dissolved, or is legally defunct, this agreement and the rights and obligations hereunder shall be fully assigned to the city of Glenwood Springs. So we brought this to West Mountain. We actually had a meeting with them today, and they're all on board with these conditions. And again, these are just simple legal sort of guardrails to kind of help, keep this transaction in a good place for the city. Some pros and cons to kind of think about here, I think are worth mentioning. The pros are, this is a development neutral situation. So here we're going to house a qualified local that the building that they're purchasing already exists. So there's no development happening. The person, as I said, lives and works in Glenwood Springs, which is a significant community benefit. The house is deed restricted in perpetuity. So there's no end of the deed restriction. The city has a second right of refusal. And then this is a extremely favorable cost benefit to the city, which I think is worth mentioning. Just the cost of buying down a house in today's market, putting $42,000 towards that is a pretty good deal for the city. So just think that's worth to point out. A con that I think is worth mentioning is, the deed restriction is written in such a way that it doesn't necessarily prohibit this person or future people who might buy this house from working in a different community. They still have to live in Glenwood Springs full time, but they could theoretically get a job, in Basalt, and that is something to kind of think about. But that's sort of what I thought of for the pros and cons. Fiscal impacts, I'll just run through how this impacts the current funding of the 2C. So as of May, there's just over $740,000 2C funds available. Again, the cost of buying on the property is $211,000. If we were to go with WHFAB's recommendation of $42,000, we would have $698,000 left in the 2C. So with that, staff recommends, we defer to the WHFAB recommendation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Counselor Zelinski.
So that 741,000 roughly that's in the 2C fund, is that take into consideration the promises we've already kind of committed to? That's in addition to that? All right, thank you.
I have we contributed money to this. How does that?
We did, and Kevin actually mentioned that in his presentation in the beginning. So the general fund, the city generously donated $200,000 to get this program up and running. And this is, as we talked about at that time, an additional opportunity when it arises. And as we mentioned, we thought this would happen, but the first candidate is a very qualified candidate for our 2C funds. So it was mentioned at the time when you guys were considering the amount that we were donating, which landed on $200,000, that we could later apply some 2C funding, not general fund, to help this program go even further.
And so this is the first one and
Right out of the gates.
in the
Glenwood
event,
proper,
yeah.
Valley View Hospital.
It's
Kids in
great.
the
It's,
school.
it's checking all the boxes.
Checking all the boxes.
Yep. I guess in future, will every home that falls into Glenwood, will they come to us and ask for this?
That's certainly a discussion, and we talked about it a little bit today at the West Mountain meeting, and also our WFAB board talked about it as well. I don't think we've got that full policy request to you tonight, but it's certainly something. The program is proving quite successful. They already have 4 houses under contract. This was the first one. We also, one of the other 4 is also in Glenwood Springs. And is a Roaring Fork School District employee. Then there's one being purchased in Newcastle for a Rifle employee, and one being purchased in Carbondale for an Aspen employee. So we're really seeing a great turnout so far of a mix of places and actually getting them pretty close, if not right on top of where they're going to be working. If it's something that you are interested in, WFAB had expressed some interest in possibly creating a policy of we will support 20% or up to a certain amount in addition for the ones that meet that specific criteria. Or, you know, I think I'm getting the 2 acronyms because they're so similar mixed up. West Mountain today reported that with the 4 contracted properties that they have a remaining $1 million in the fund. So they're actively looking at additional funding sources, philanthropic efforts, as well as other. So every property that we possibly fund from the 2C money makes that go a little bit further. So it really is consideration for you guys of, you know, is this worth does it hold value to us? As Kevin mentioned, you know, staff and WFAB feels that it does. The amount of money it takes to get a deed restricted home that's already in existence, a single family home that's built. You guys know I preach at you all the time that we are not building for sale product. And so that's getting harder and harder to find. So there's a value there, and just seeing what you guys think about that 20%. It's up for debate, obviously, and also up for debate on whether it's a policy we want to pursue if those candidates come up in the future.
Thank you. That's what I needed. I needed that kind of like, where are we? Are we going to see every single house? Are we going to have this? So I appreciate all
I'm
that.
sure they'll ask every time.
Yeah. Counselor Gotis.
What are the other communities, Carbondale and Rifle, putting in for their match?
So Carbondale put in $100,000. And I think when Counselor Laird, are they called counselors in Carbondale?
Trustees.
Trustee Laird, he was here actually presenting this program with you guys a couple months back. I believe he spoke to the fact that Carbondale's budget compared to ours, if you compare the monies put in, which I guess our communities do all the time, you know, that's a fairly significant amount for them. So Carbondale has 100,000 in. The rest of the members of West Mountain have also put in significant amount of the money. Snowmass Village is 250,000. Picken and Aspen severely higher. The bulk of the program is coming from them, and they actually don't have a house that's been bought yet in those jurisdictions, unsurprisingly. Rifle and the Colorado River Valley communities have not yet bought into membership for West Mountain, though we are continuing to have conversations with them. And we were just talking today with the purchase of the home in Newcastle that will be going back. What they said to us, West Mountain, was that they want to see what we can do. A little bit more of a wait and see, as their needs are a little bit different from the Roaring Fork Valley and up.
So Rifle's not a member, has not contributed any money. They are getting a home and they don't have to contribute any money at all. And we're contributing with our 200,000 that we contribute to the Western Housing Alliance.
West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition.
Yep.
That one.
And the $200,000 ask tonight?
Actually,
sorry.
from us, it's only 42,000.
42,000. Yeah.
20% of the purchase price.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. I wanted to go over those numbers.
Mhm.
Another question. If I remember it all.
Yeah, come back to it. Counselor Schechter.
I'll wait for comments.
Counselor Weimer.
Would this family be able to purchase the house without our additional contribution?
So this particular program doesn't have income limits like some of our others do, so we're not evaluating what their income is.
So the answer is yes.
The answer is we do not know.
The answer is.
The answer is we don't know. So this additional contribution is us being generous with 2C funds. Finding an opportunity and deciding whether or not to apply it to the situation.
The additional contribution would actually, the West Mountain is going to do this regardless.
Yep.
So your additional contribution tonight for consideration is really about extending the life of this program, witnessing what they have already with just 1 month in, and whether or not you see the value in that. I guess the last thing I would mention that's worth consideration when you're thinking about that as well. The administration to run this program is quite great. So West Mountain is holding webinars weekly to educate possible home buyers on the program, how it functions, handling all of the closing, which Mayor Wusso, you could probably explain a lot better than I can, and the administration of a program, which we currently don't have, and will expend lots of Kevin's work and time to possibly create. So there's also an administration cost
So does
associated
the
that I want you guys to consider.
Is the 42 grand then offsetting Western Mountains overhead?
Yes. So it would be further supporting West Mountain's good deeds program.
It's not going to the family.
Homeowner. It's not increasing the amount that we're buying down the home. The buy down amount, regardless of what you guys do tonight, is $211,500.
Okay.
If council agrees with WFAB's recommendation and wants to further support this program, we would be transferring 2C funds to West Mountain to cover that portion of the
Okay.
financing gap.
Okay. Thank you. That clarifies. Thank you.
Yeah, Kevin has something to add as well.
If I could just offer one additional sort of tidbit here. I think it's worth pointing out that the city of Glenwood Springs is in a unique position compared to these other communities because we are the first community where this house is being purchased. Council has the opportunity to set a precedent with the other communities who are bought into this program to perhaps put additional money when these houses are bought in their communities. So I would look at this as more of a long-term strategy as opposed to simply continuing to buy down this one transaction. So it's one additional way of kind of looking at this.
Counselor Cotis.
I remember another question. How are we able to use 2C funds when this is not deed restricted for continuous? I understand this person right now works for Valley View, but they could be working for Aspen Valley Hospital in 2 months.
If I may, Counselor, a couple of different ways. The 2C funds allow us to partner on these kinds of programs. It's expressed in the ballot language as well as code language. There's also not really a temporal limitation. That's one that council has been very focused on. But I would argue underneath the strict language of 2C, a single transaction like this actually would qualify as meeting the requirements. Those additional thoughts that council has applied to it or WFAB has as they've looked at individual transactions certainly are important policy considerations, but they're not strictly required by the express language of the program as the ballot language or as codified, because this is in fact for a Glenwood resident, Glenwood workforce, this particular transaction is.
Okay, thanks.
Counselor Zelinski.
So moving forward, with this being deed restricted in perpetuity, do we yet have the structure to manage our portfolio of deed restricted properties?
So
is that a Glenwood thing? Is that going to be
West Mountain?
West
actually,
Mountain?
which is-
Okay.
Could see as a benefit. I as staff see it as a benefit.
That's what I was wondering. That's why I was kind of
Because, so this is also kind of how this is a creative opportunity, is we're getting the deed restricted home in Glenwood, but we don't have to manage. We have put in some conditions just in case, we know things happen to organizations, or if they're unable for that first right of refusal, then it would come to us. So that's what our WFAB commission was comfortable with, to ensure that it wouldn't go away if something happens to West Mountain, which I think is very smart. But we don't have to manage the resale. We don't have to manage the closing. We don't have to manage funding of any kind. If the individual that purchases this home, say in 3 years, is moving to Utah or something, the next qualified buyer would have to meet the parameters of the deed restriction placed on the house that was placed by West Mountain. And West Mountain would be able to have the first right of refusal, but the deed restriction just lives on, and there's no additional funding from either of those organizations to continue that deed restriction. So for that particular property, it is going to be bought with this deed restriction for that amount, and it will continue as such in perpetuity unless West Mountain or us were not able to pick it up in right of first refusal in the case of foreclosure.
Perfect. Thank you.
Counselor Kelp.
Thanks, Hannah. A couple of questions. If it looks like I was looking at the work session plan, and it looks like WFAB is going to bring us a proposal for rent subsidy, I think, or rent assistance. So I guess my question is, if we fund this one and we set a precedent at 20%, will those funds, and let's say there's 2 or 3 more that come along in Glenwood to fund, will that inhibit what we can do with the funding that's in 2C for other programs that are being considered?
Great question, Counselor Cow. So with the addition of capacity from Kevin, we've really been able to sit down and kind of create a more robust budget, and that has been prepared, and we are presenting that to our WFAB board every meeting they have. So we did analyze our current commitments and the programs that we intend to roll out, and we feel comfortable and are well within being able to roll those out, and with continued funding for those if they work out well. The rental assistance will be coming to you on October 3rd as a pilot program. So we do have the funding for that initial pilot program and moving forward in our current budget.
Okay, great. And then is there any other, for $42,500 or this amount, is there any other way to get a deed restriction on a home in Glenwood Springs for that kind of funding?
I think I would look to the other deed restriction programs that have been long-standing in Eagle and Summit County and Breckenridge. And when you look at the numbers there of the amount of funding required, the average amount spent on their buy downs, it is significantly higher than the amount you're seeing tonight. Obviously, you know, our home prices are a little bit different than some of those areas. But I would not know what to tell you to do with $42,000 to get a deed restriction on a for sale property currently.
Okay. And we also have the option as council, if we didn't want to do 20%, could we do 15% or 10% or some other number if council wanted?
Absolutely. Yes, that's very good to point out. 20% is what came out of our commission. They started with a consideration of 50% and they were comfortable with 20%. Your comfort level also factors into this as well. So 0% up to whatever it is that you feel is appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Hannah. Thanks, Kevin.
Somebody, do you have questions? Okay. I am going to bring it back to council. No questions? We're good? Okay. I'm gonna open it to public comment, see if there's anybody here from the public or online that would like to comment on this program and our possible contribution. Okay. Anyone back in council want to make a motion? Counselor Schechter.
I didn't get a chance to comment. I would move to deny the funding at this point and open it up for conversation after that.
I'll need a second. Counselor Dunn.
I would second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Love to hear some comment. Would you like to go ahead and kick it off?
I would. First of all, I wasn't at, I apologize, I wasn't at the meeting because I would have spoken at the committee meeting as I will tonight, and I always hate to cross Hannah. But I have serious reservations about this for a variety of reasons. First, I'm going to digress. It's nice to see the workforce housing accrual. It'd be nice to see the expenses with it, a true net accounting. That would help all the time. Thank you. But more importantly, here's my feeling. I had some reservations when we funded initially. We funded a large amount, and I had a lot of discussion, and I'll agree with Commissioner Godus on this, particularly this was widespread, and it was a lot of a broad area, not necessarily Glenwood. And we said, well, let's see what happens. Well, and it's really neat that the first one, and Kevin's here to receive it, the first one is ideal for our 2C goals. However, we put a lot of money in, and I'm waiting to see, first of all, the spread of where it goes. And also because it's not helping this homeowner directly, it's replacing funds. So that's one reservation. The second reservation I have is that workforce, our workforce fab still has to flesh out its 3-year plan a little better. I'm pleased that we're getting the much anticipated rental subsidy. I think it's critical before we do this, that our workforce housing board come up with either a complementary or overlapping actual buy down policy, which is missing. I hate to do it on a one-shot basis and not have the consistency. In addition to that, I'd rather see it on a revolving loan basis. So on the sale of a house, this is an example. On the sale of a house at 3% appreciation, upon the sale of the house, that down payment should be put back into the fund. In this case, it's only about a 3-year accrual at 3% a year. So those are a lot of missing pieces that I'm not ready for approval, and that's for my motion, even though I don't like voting against my own financial advisory board. My own personal bias too is I hope at some point we all look, you've heard this, that we look at ways to direct funds toward our mobile home parks as well, because that's the greatest preservation of housing we could ever do. So I just think the timing is wrong and the details are incomplete. And I'd even have them consider, like Councilman Godus has said, we don't have to follow the model of Habitat. It's more difficult, but now we have Kevin on board. Maybe we should say, you don't work here, you don't live here anymore. I don't know the answer to that, but these are some unanswered questions, I think, and that's the reason for my motion. Thank you.
Counselor Godus.
I'm shocked. I think I have a lot of thoughts, but so Carbondale's putting in, they put in 100,000. Their 100,000 was our 200,000, right? That's the initial get off the ground runway. But they're not going to be asked to put in, and maybe you answered this, but I didn't understand it. They're not being asked to put in any money for their 20% of the deed buy down, correct?
They do not have a dedicated affordable housing fund like we do.
Gotcha. And I think that's one of the things. We have more ability certainly than Rifle and Carbondale, but partially it's because we've gone to our voters and we've asked for that. And these other municipalities have not, and they can. And so I think that is something that we should encourage our other municipalities to do so that they can have a fund, a dedicated source like we have done, and we did the hard work to get. I like, Sumner, your idea. You said the word loan, and it makes a lot of sense that if we're going to be in a second position lien, essentially, with one of the recommendations in the event of a foreclosure, that if we wanted to structure the 42,000 as like a 3% loan, as a second deed recorded, and take that out of 2C, I think then it replenishes. Then it is something that feeds upon itself. So if this fails, I would put that forth possibly as a motion so that we can still bridge a gap. But one of the things that I'm struggling with is this 42,000 is not for the purchase of the house. It's for the admin, right? No,
this is the down payment for the
right,
house.
but it's kind of going for the admin. Is what you said.
I would put it that way, but.
Okay, well, that's what I thought I heard.
But some of our 200,000 did. Yeah.
Right. Well, we're also putting in significant, Kevin's not free. You know, we're also we're going to be contributing more to this housing coalition, probably because of Kevin's time. That being said, I like the idea of being a setter. Kevin, I think that was a great point you made of being able to now to go to other communities and say, hey, this is the cost of when it comes to your community, this is what it's going to cost. I don't know how you make that case to say a Carbondale when we're going to take your housing stock for Up Valley workers. That's a little more difficult than the Valley View employee right now. But I'm also looking at if Rifle has this opportunity, but they don't want to become members, maybe they're required to do 50% of the deed buy down instead of the 20%. You know, what do we do? How do we structure this so that non-members are incentivized to become a part of the team, or else, hey, we can get this, but it's going to cost us $150,000 where it costs Glenwood $20,000 or $42,000. I like a lot of this. I struggle with a lot of the things I've said before, but those are just, I think, some of my thoughts about how to maybe entice other communities into it. How to encourage other communities to get their own source of revenue like we've done and putting that hard work in, and potentially maybe structuring this as a loan so that it would still be able to bridge a gap at a very attractive interest rate, or none even. I mean, we can talk about that. Thank you.
Counselor Zelinski.
So I like this. And initially I was like, well, why wouldn't we do this? Because it seemed like a really, percentage wise kind of a low investment. And then as everybody speaks, I'm like, oh, I hear that. I like that it's development neutral. I'm concerned that you say we're setting a precedent. We also are setting a precedent. So we're setting a precedent that, we're going to continue to fund this, maybe not to the same level as other communities are being asked to fund it. And I think that, so there's two precedents to be considered there. The voters, when this was on the ballot, it was not hugely popular. It was a leap of faith. And so I feel like we have this responsibility to be very judicious in the way that we use the 2C funds. This is a great start, but since we have already funded it through the city, do we continue to keep throwing money at the problem, or do we look at future projects? And so I think that I'm just curious if there any reason that doing this 42,000 today would compromise down the road funds, as far as like the fund balance. We're counting on tourism to continue to fund the fund, all these things that are variable. And so I don't know, do we just like let the 200 ride and see what comes next? And that's, where I'm waffling just a little bit.
Before I do second rounds. Thank you. Councilor Deb.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to quickly add on it, and it's no big deal. It's already been mentioned a couple of times, but I guess I wasn't aware, maybe I didn't pay attention, that how did that family get qualified? And I should have asked that earlier. If there's no income requirement, if there's no AMI that is being looked at to even qualify for this program. So that concerns me a little bit, and maybe that's something we need to work out with West Mountain.
May I clarify just to?
Yeah.
Please do.
So there is a lengthy qualification process through West Mountain. They just don't have that particular limit. And that was presented when the support came from this board the last time. There are other limitations that you have to meet to qualify. You cannot own any other property. You have to work a certain amount within that area. So there are quite a few qualifying factors in place.
But the income was not one.
Administered by West Mountain, but this program has never advertised that it would ever have an income limit.
Right. Okay. And the other thing is, and Councilor Schachter mentioned it, that if our WFAB board would have just changed the or put other conditions on there that I'm sorry, but if you don't work in this city anymore, you need to move on. And I'm dig
give you
into
another
that one.
clarification, and my apologies, I didn't mention this. The
Yeah.
way this program was set up and that was presented to you about this particular program, we do not have the opportunity to add on any other stipulations. That's how it was built, and that's how it was described and explained to all the jurisdictional members, because, and I will explain why that came to be, when they first started out and going kind of feelers of our jurisdictions going to be supportive of this, every jurisdiction, including us, had, well, we want certain deed restrictions that meet our qualifications, and we want you to administer that program with our specifications when it meets our criteria. That was across the board. There's 9 jurisdictions on that board. They quickly realized they do not have the capacity to manage that beast. And so it was, here's our program. Here's what we're going to shoot to do. If you like it, we welcome your support and thank you very much when support was given. But that is a stipulation, and that's what we described to WFAB as well, that they did not have the opportunity to add on a Glenwood Springs workforce deed restriction in addition. So it is not that that's a, that's the way it's structured. It's
Sure.
If you want to support this, then that's the way it is. And if not, then we look at other opportunities that meet the goals and policies that you're describing tonight.
Right. And for that reason, I would be interested. I don't think we can solve this tonight, but the loan aspect of this entire thing sounds very enticing to replenish our funds. Like I said, I don't think we can figure this out tonight, but I think this is something we should talk about for future applications.
Counselor Kelp.
Okay. Thanks. Can you guys hear me okay? All right. So I would like to clarify too, because I've been the RAFTA rep on the the Regional Housing Coalition Board, and I struggled too with the fact that they didn't have an income limit. But I think the realization came across as the goal of this program is to get more deed restricted housing within their region, within the valley from Aspen to Parachute, just so that looking far into the future that these homes remain somewhat affordable with the 3% appreciation cap into the future long-term for workers in the region. So that was part of the buying into it when we made the $200,000 contribution. And I think that makes sense at this point because if someone can afford to buy a house in this valley, they're likely not going to sign up for a deed restricted house. They're going to purchase a house on the open market if that's what they can afford. So the program is designed for people who can't afford to get in without this down payment assistance. And in that way, we're getting a deed restricted property within the city. I'm struggling a little bit from the city standpoint as far as adding extra right now, because if we don't make this 20% contribution, I think the deal will go through and the homeowner, the purchaser will still get the same amount of money. They'll get the 30% down. So if Glenwood was to put in the extra 20% right now from the 2C funds, it helps the longevity and it helps stretch the money for the regional program, but it doesn't necessarily help Glenwood Springs as much. So I'm kind of interested in the loan concept, but I guess what I would propose, rather than putting in 20% of the 30% that the regional group is putting down, I would almost propose taking that 42,000 or some other number, maybe it's 21,000, it's 10% of that 30% down, but adding that on as an additional incentive for the home buyer in Glenwood Springs, and that would be repaid at sale. I think in that way, we're almost incentivizing purchasers within Glenwood Springs to purchase property that people who live and work here, as opposed to other homes in the region. So I'm just going to throw that out there as a way to use this money as an incentive. And then in that way, to me, it would justify more having that be a loan that's paid back on the future sale. So I don't know, I'm interested in what Hannah and Kevin might think of that idea, but Yeah. In general, I'm in favor of this, but I can also understand the arguments put forth that are not really favoring it from other counselors.
Thoughts on her idea? I think what it would qualify as kind of the equivalent of a silent second, which we do silent, like Chaffa does silent seconds. And, you know, they just kind of sit there, but it would hear what you guys, a few of you were recommending, and that is somehow encourage more of a revolving loan so it's replenished.
It looks like Carl's got his finger on the button.
Finger on the button.
First.
Well, no, I was just gonna suggest, that this is kind of a binary choice tonight. And the program you're talking about is something, are really good comments to go back to LaFab and have them work on a program like that. This is not something that you can layer on top of that's going to change this situation, right?
That closes tomorrow.
It closes tomorrow. And so this is really a binary choice. And I think that you guys burning a ton of your energy tonight probably isn't helpful because it's not going to change this deal.
I'm
I don't say
gonna
this often, but Carl stole the words right out of my mouth.
right out of your mouth.
Yes,
Okay.
I think I've been writing down your guys' ideas, and I do think they're valuable to look at for future programs. Obviously not applicable to this one tonight, just given timelines.
Okay.
It would take some work to get there, but yeah, I don't see anything that you've said tonight as being overly complicated or having not been done somewhere else.
Okay, so before we do another round, might I just suggest that we simply take our legal counsel's advice? We have a motion on the table. We could give staff additional direction to come back or talk to West Mountain Regional Housing Authority with the help of Kevin, and kind of dig into some, you know, the feedback that we're recommending. But I have lots of mics lit up. So Counselor Schechter.
Well, I would just parlay on this and not redundant. I agree. This is a choice tonight, not for us to make policy. It's, do we want to put more money into the regional workforce pool, not into our Glenwood homeowners? That's a yes or no. And secondly, I think as Hannah, to me, it's imperative that our workforce, our own workforce financial advisory board, work on a buy down policy that meets some of this input perhaps, and also involves a recoup of any buy down dollars, which is easy to do, and come back to us with an actual policy recommendation. Thank you.
Counselor Zelinski.
Yeah, I think I keep coming back to the only reason we're being asked this question is because we have a fund. If we didn't have the fund, you wouldn't be asking. And so in that vein, I'm kind of reluctant to contribute more money than we already have, only because I think it is so preliminary. We don't know where this money needs to go yet. And I wouldn't want to set a precedent and a standard without having, you know, all the history. We're not even a year into how we do this. And so I feel like it's just, I don't want to make binding decisions that can be setting a standard for down the road without understanding fully the landscape we're operating in.
Thank you. Counselor Gotis.
I think we need several work sessions because I think we need to figure out what we want to do, how we want to do it. I just did some quick math and we think we're going to secure 77 units with Habitat. We gave $1.5 million in just,
88.
huh?
88.
Excuse me, then my math's a slightly different, but my point's going to be close.
Okay, sorry. to interrupt. Yeah.
Thank you. But it's about, I guess now $18,000 of loan per unit, $18,000 of gift per unit. So we're in the same ballpark right here. And so I think that for this specific ask, let's have these work sessions. Let's figure out some of the feedback that we can give, because I don't like the idea of communities that aren't involved in this program being able to benefit so disproportionately. And how do we help work our way through this? Because we have to digest this and make it feel good to us as well. And so I think whether it's a loan, whether it's a gift, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of support to make the decision right now when it's closing tomorrow. But that doesn't say that I wouldn't be supportive of the $42,000. Absolutely. I just want to process it with you guys first.
I think you have probably heard, I'm gonna add a couple more things just because we all love to do that. And just say that, knowing it's closing tomorrow, I don't think this is make or break. The reality is that they probably have everything dialed in to close tomorrow. Earnest money's probably gone hard. This is not going to impede the ability for this family. I'm excited for them. I think this is how the program is supposed to work. I'm excited to hear that it fits all of the vision we had for how these funds would be used. I think when we do this in the 11th hour, it feels very reactionary versus proactive. I would love to have a plan where we say every year we allocate 250,000 or whatever the increment so that we can help with down payment assistance in a, revolving silent second like Chaffa does. Because that's how Chaffa funds itself. It puts the money in at closing, and then when they turn the house around, that money gets returned. I would like to see something more like that. I think that, in the history of giving money, it feels more responsible for our tax base and the people that we have been charged with managing the money for the city, that we do a variety of opportunities to support the housing crisis that we all kind of agree that we have. I'd also like to make sure that 2C has enough time to dig into what they want and how they want to allocate it. It feels like there've been so many asks that they haven't been able to step back and say, hey, there's these other programs. We want to do an ADU buy down program or, kind of a revolving loan, or in your case, you mentioned the rental assistance. I worry that we do have a pot of money but it's going very quickly. So with all that, I'll just double check that there are no other comments, and otherwise I will call the question.
Clarify the motion, please, maybe one more time.
So the motion would be to deny the request and yet wish this family well. So deny the request.
Positive is to deny.
Yes. And Counselor Kelp, can you just give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down? You're a thumbs up to support the motion tonight. Thank you.
It passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you all. And Kevin, sorry to start on a note where we denied your request.
Oh, that's all right. You
Okay,
did a great case.
Yeah.
Great job. Thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Okay. Okay, we are moving on to ordinance 2024-18 requiring commercial multifamily buildings to use an appropriate recycling service. Matt Langhorst, Public Works Director. Hi.
How's it going? Sorry, I'm not doing a fancy presentation. I'm going to say my restriction is the reason. I believe you guys all spoke to Elizabeth Morrow last week, 2 weeks ago, I guess it was. Kind of about how trash is happening with the solid waste collection. It actually showed you, I believe it was right around 30% of what's still going to the landfills recyclables. We know that the city of Glenwood Springs with the pay-as-you-throw program is doing what we can to remove recyclables out of the residential waste stream. But the two other large waste streams we have are multifamily, which is anything that's 8 units and up, and commercial. So the easiest way for us to kind of promote them to recycle, if you've read the text, it doesn't say exactly what size they have to use. It's single stream. It basically says exactly containers, recyclables shall be collected and hauled separately from other solid waste and may not be disposed of in a permitted recycling transfer station. So it's a step forward for us, and it's good language for us into the code to be able to work with the mountain waste, the waste managements, the valley, everybody out there to say, hey, you've got trash in a dumpster. Let's talk about how we can get some recycling built into it, adjacent to it in a separate container and be hauled away. So it is not the end all be all. It's not forcing them to use a certain container size or a certain amount, but it is language for us to at least push them to pull some of the recycling out of the recycling stream.
Perfect. That was our goal. I think a lot of us were a little surprised that there wasn't a requirement.
Correct.
I think all of us, actually quite a few were like, really? There's no way. So, any additional thoughts? You want me to bring it back to council for questions?
Questions, comments?
Counselor Schechter.
What happens after this is approved and compliance?
So that's actually an interesting question. I'm going to look over at Carl for is if we can put a time frame that they must do this within a certain period of time. What are the expectations?
I think that's really gonna be more informally working, kind of group by group. I would suggest that we leave it the way it is because it'll be effective and they need to do it 3 days after publication on second reading.
Yeah.
And that gives us some leverage there. I think always our code enforcement folks are great about compliance first. But this gives, the reality is if we say, oh, by November 15th, it'll be November 13th and nobody will have done anything. So I'd prefer to leave it the way it is and give us some ability to use our discretion out there as we're working with folks with the multifamilies in particular.
Great. Any additional questions?
Yeah, and then how do they find out about it?
So if council agrees with this, and we will be reaching out to, after the second reading, 'cause
Yeah.
it's an ordinance, after the second reading goes by, and if you still agree with the language, we'll be reaching out to all the haulers. There's not that many of them to kind of inform them that this language has been put in here.
Yeah.
Start working towards this. Let us know what that looks like, which which businesses or multifamilies they are, so that we can work with them to kind of come into compliance.
Counselor Kell.
Matt, will we have the ability to, let's say someone's not in compliance and you're still getting waste trucks that are full of recyclable materials? Can you at some point reject those, or will it just be more trying to work with people? What teeth do we have in that?
So what we've been doing to this point, because we do see trucks come in and half the truck is cardboard. Where did that come from? Let's have a conversation. So instead of the teeth approach, it's more of the, let's find out where it came from, because they only hit a certain amount of businesses or multifamily during that day. That hauler knows what came out of those trash cans. They take video of it as they're dumping it, so we know exactly where they're at. I said we would just work with the company. Most companies have video cameras. We would work with the company to find out where it came from and then work with them on solving the problem, basically.
Okay.
Teeth, I believe we would fall right back under the same waste code that we have right now. So there is teeth available to us with fines.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Oh, yeah. Perfect. I don't have any other council questions, so we'll open it up to public comment. Anyone here to discuss it or have any comments? Anybody online would like to discuss commercial recycling requirements? Okay, I'm gonna close public comment, bring it back to council for a motion. Counselor Grotus.
I move that we approve ordinance 2024-18 requiring commercial multifamily buildings to use an appropriate recycling service.
Counselor Zelinski.
I second.
Okay, I do have a question from Counselor Kaup, I believe. Is there another one, Counselor Kaup? Nope, okay, sorry. Great, we'll go ahead and call the question. Counselor Kaup? Yep, thumbs up.
It passes unanimously.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So that is the first, for those who are watching from home, that is the first reading. As it's an ordinance, it does require a second reading. So if there are any concerns or questions prior to that, please contact us and let us know your concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, council.
Yeah, thank you. Do we need to take a quick break? Anybody want to take a quick break? You guys want to just keep on keeping on? Okay, go ahead and we'll move on to item number 18, advertise for a council position. Carl Hanlon.
Sure. We had a brief discussion at the work session today regarding a process for the replacement of Counselor Kaup. I'm going to have Ryan give you the dates again that we discussed: advertising, accepting applications, doing interviews, and ultimately, hopefully appointing a replacement for Counselor Kaup.
So we talked about advertising the 9th, the 16th, and the 23rd applications would be due.
All of October, right?
Yes, October, I apologize.
Then holding a special meeting on November 6th at 10 a.m. For interviews. That will not be, it's open to the public, but it will not be public comment on that. And then hopefully council will be appointing on November 7th at our regular meeting. For the public's benefit, the charter does require that the council appoint a replacement within 30 days of the vacancy, which will occur at the second meeting in October. With that, happy to answer any questions, but that's really more just to update the public and confirm that council is still on the same page we were this afternoon on those dates.
Great. Any questions, comments? Any public comment for this item? Doesn't look like it, so I will go ahead and close that that agenda item. And we will move on to item number 19, also Carl Hanlon, resolution 2024-31, support of local ballot measure.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before you is resolution 2024-31. In the Fair Campaigns Practices Act world, this is the one action that council can take once they have set a ballot under Tabor in support of that ballot measure. If council is inclined to support that ballot measure, we tried to kind of put together some of the best, some information around that in the whereas clauses. Really, it's, urging, if you are inclined to pass it, urging the citizens to vote in favor. It's going to be ballot issue 2A. It will be the last item on the second page of the ballot. So please flip your ballot over, regardless of what you're going to vote, but please flip your ballot over because local governments, which I'm fond of, are all on the second page this year.
Yeah.
So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but it really is a council document.
And we're the only local issue out of all the municipalities.
There you go.
Okay. Any questions for this? No questions for resolution. Public comment for this. Anybody here who would like to speak on behalf of this? Okay, I'm gonna close the public comment section, bring it back to council for a motion. Councilor Day.
Thank you. In resolution 2024-31, I would move that we support the local ballot measure.
Seconded.
Any questions, comments? Otherwise, we'll call the question.
Sorry, one person didn't vote.
No, I think Counselor Kaup, are you thumbs up?
Sumner didn't vote.
Sumner didn't vote.
Sumner, okay,
Now it's lit up.
Redo it?
Yeah, redo it.
redo it. It's an opportunity for a unanimous too. Okay. Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, Counselor Zelinski. Yes, Mayor Wusso. No, Counselor Godis. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Dame. Yes, Counselor Weimer. Yes, Counselor Schechter. Yes, Counselor Kaup. It passes 6-1. That's so hard for me.
It's okay. Okay.
It's gonna be that way on the next one.
Okay, we're gonna move on to item number 20 from the agenda. This is ordinance 2024-19, an ordinance of the city of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, amending section 040-010-040 of the Glenwood Springs Municipal Code to provide for the implementation of proposed taxing measure referred to the city's electors. Councilor, Carl Hanlon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In front of you is a proposed set of changes to the municipal code to implement ballot 2A. If it does in fact pass, this would only go into effect, obviously, if it passed. We tend to want to do these ahead of time so the voters have a little bit more kind of color and framework around these things. You'll recall we did the same thing with 2C. What we've tried to do is to draft a little bit more detail than what you can squeeze into a ballot measure regarding what, the fund, what it's made of, where it resides, that, those funds carry over. They don't go back to the general fund. They carry over year to year if they're not all expended. And then really focusing on sort of reiterating the ballot language in paragraph 4 regarding what those monies can be used for. And then also acknowledging that the fund will be audited annually and the results of such audit to be posted to the city website. I would say one thing. I know that you received some commentary from Mr. Smith regarding wanting to kind of bulk up the bicycle or ped or other facilities. And I guess what I would tell you, it's gonna be hard because I talk with my hands and I have to hold the button, is that really how I guess how I drafted this language, and I think the ballot language is if you imagine a road from the sidewalk to the sidewalk, everything that happens between those two sidewalks, whether that's dedicated on an existing street, inside the corporate limits, everything that happens inside of that, sidewalks, bike lanes, facilities, whatever it is, and then the infrastructure below it. That's what we're talking about with this language. I will confess that I have some concerns about getting too wordy because I don't want people to get confused. There's already concern that this is going to be used for other purposes other than repairing existing streets, kind of sidewalk to sidewalk, and what that means. Certainly that does not exclude those dedicated bike lanes or separated bike lanes. Those are all part of the street. I do think that there is concern that it winds up going to trails or to a new facility for bicycles. That's not really the intent, as I understand it, at least the intent of this tax. That's something that we've always dealt with more out of A&I. So anyway, with that, it is council's discretion what they want to do with this. I tried my best to get the language where you wanted it. If there are changes you want to have made, I would suggest we don't do those on the fly tonight, but you give me direction and I bring it back and we'll open it up on second reading instead of having it on the consent agenda so that we can be more specific. In talking through so that everybody is clear on if their changes are made, that they're what you were looking for. With that, happy to answer any questions.
I'm going to start with the first question, and that is to address Mr. Smith's concerns and just say that, is it truthful in campaign literature that those who advocate for it could say, if we have this, if this passes, we can use it for bike lanes and ped lanes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sidewalk to sidewalk on an existing street that is being repaired or replaced.
Yeah.
Within the
Okay.
corporate limits.
Okay.
And I would note, I want to be really clear. I did include language about that they're within the corporate limits so that it's not being used for streets that exist outside of the corporate boundaries. It has to be, it would have to be something that we would have annexed into the town. That's part of the town.
Sure.
It's not being used in conjunction with, a project with the county or something to, I don't know, fix Melray Road or something like that.
And
It's not actually a city street.
Existing city streets in addition. So if there was
Existing city streets within the corporate boundaries. And
Yeah.
like I said, I think of it as kind of sidewalk to sidewalk.
Okay, okay. So a new subdivision comes in on the
New
developer.
subdivision coming in, that would not be, these funds would not be used to construct those streets. If that subdivision happened to be the way we always handle that is developers pay for the construction of those improvements out of the gate. That's just the way we do it.
Okay.
As do most communities.
Okay. Any additional questions? Okay, I'll look for a motion. Oh, let's do public comment.
Yeah, Steve's here, so.
Yeah, come on up. You know the drill. 3 minutes, say your name and if you live in city limits.
Thank you very much, Steve Smith. I do live within the city limits. I'm here tonight on behalf of Glenwood Springs Bicycle Advocates. Our advisory board enthusiastically decided to endorse this ballot measure and to not only renew the Streets and Infrastructure Fund, but to expand it. And our volunteers have already begun our organized outreach to our network of cyclists to persuade them to give their support to this measure. We base that enthusiasm and support on the understanding that the city attorney just described. The infrastructure fund, the Streets and Infrastructure Fund can indeed be used to maintain, repair, and upgrade street-based facilities, including those that are used by bicyclists and by pedestrians. Many of the facilities we're thinking about: crosswalks, bicycle striping, other pavement markings, flashing signals for crossings, other signals, directional and safety signs are the kinds of things that could be provided and maintained under this program. But to be sure that those measures continue to get the attention they need through the long life of this fund, 20 years is a long time, we strongly urge you to specify that in your municipal code update. We currently see some excellent attitude from your staff in Public Works, Engineering, and Parks and Rec for designing and maintaining and repairing these bicycle and pedestrian facilities. But 20 years is a long time. And for a long time before now, bicycles and pedestrians have been an afterthought. And this is a new age. We want to reinforce that new age by providing additional funding to your staff and their excellent current attitudes. But we would suggest that you take just a few lines from your whereases and put it in the municipal code to affirm that this is indeed for drivers and cyclists and pedestrians, the full spectrum. So that there's no doubt about it. We don't have to rely on campaign statements, but that the city itself is declaring that it's indeed for drivers, it's indeed for cars, but it's also for all of us who end up being pedestrians at some point in our trip. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Any additional public comment? As I see none, I will close public comment for this item. Bring it back to council. Do I have a motion to approve? Oh, there we go. Counselor Weimer.
I had a comment.
Oh,
I have a question.
let's go ahead and do a couple more questions. So Counselor Dem.
Thank you. So, Carl.
Oops,
No.
hold on. Hold on. Sorry, my mic's got all off.
Is it me now? Okay, thank you.
You'll have to turn yours back on.
Just out of curiosity, what Mr. Smith has proposed, if we add the, what did he say, vehicles, bicycles and pedestrian, if that's added, would that hurt in any way, shape or form?
You know, I was looking at the language a little bit. I think there's, it's not exactly as, I want it to be more specific than aspirational like it is in the whereas clauses. We'll probably add something to the effect of gutter, sidewalks, crosswalks, and, you know, other pedestrian and bicycle facilities in existing streets, something along those lines. I don't want it to feel like it's drifting to new things is all. So certainly I could do a little bit of a redraft.
Including?
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly tinker with that language if you guys want to see some potential language on second reading.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Weimer.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And Carl, to clarify, so he talked a bit about signals, safety lights, et cetera, right? You said between the sidewalks. Is that?
Yeah, I would include
is
that
that
kind of, I
conflicting?
think I don't think it's a conflict at all. And I actually liked some of what Mr. Smith was saying in terms of, you know, specifying crosswalks and things like that, just to identify those safety features. I think what I'd like to do, I can tinker a little bit with the language on second reading to pull some more of that in. I think what my concern is that it just be really specific to existing street infrastructure so that we're not talking about the trail system and things like that.
But are we talking literally from the sidewalk's edge to the side? Are we including sidewalks or no?
We are including sidewalks. There's
We are.
specified that we are including sidewalks.
Okay.
And I was using that as just kind of a general example that if you can think about a street and everything that happens, the sidewalk is usually the thing that is the farthest from the middle of the street and the last public facility we have when we rebuild a street. We have sidewalks, we have, you know, curb and gutter, we have bicycle lanes, there may be crosswalks or intersections or lights, but all of that is occurring kind of between kind of that general sidewalk to sidewalk.
Okay.
Counselor Godus.
I move we approve ordinance 2419, implementation of proposed tax measure referred to the city electors
For a second.
as written.
As written.
As written. And if I may make a quick comment about that, I think the simplicity, keeping it simple in all aspects is going to make this a potentially more easier for the public to understand. It's an ordinance. We can come back in 6 months, we can come back in 6 years, and we can refine what pedestrian or bike facilities look like. It's not going to be on the ballot language. Let's just keep things as simple as possible so the voters have a clear, bright idea of what they're actually doing. That's my motion, but that's not a part of the motion. The motion is simply to approve it as written. Yep.
Do I have a second? Counselor
I'm
Wyman.
going out on that limb. I can get a second.
A second.
Okay. Okay, so I'll look for some comment because that was a really weak second. Okay, it was not enthusiastic. Counselor Schechter.
Well, I think simplicity is better, but if I'm understanding, and I like Steve's comments, if I'm understanding Carl, some very simple tweaking on, what is it, section 4A could include the intersections and bicycle issues without complicating the ballot. So I'd probably be in favor of a simple tweak, and the second reading should be able to come up with it.
Yeah, I was gonna say with the motion that's on the table, I certainly can provide alternate language to you on second reading for you guys to think about, but passing it as is fine with that understanding that I'll provide a little bit of additional language if I can keep it to 7 words or
Well,
less.
if we pass it as is, what's the mandate to come back?
We always have to do
readings
2
and
readings.
ordinance.
You usually don't discuss things on second reading because they go on the consent
Yeah.
agenda, but you always approve them twice.
We always
On
have
an
the
ordinance.
option to amend
Right,
them.
but I mean, if we approve the motion, is there,
trust
are
me,
you also
Steve-
coming back at the second reading with?
Yeah, well,
amendments?
it's with something that you can
Okay,
take a look
alright.
at. Yeah.
It'll be just, I think straight up, what we know right now is that this ordinance will not make it onto consent. It'll be a regular agenda item. We'll have a little bit more discussion with some options to do that.
Right.
Counselor Kelp.
I would support that, Carl, if you wouldn't mind bringing back some language, just to add maybe that, like some of the whereases that Steve pointed out, where that our streets are complete, that they address all the users involved. Thanks.
Okay. I think that because of how this is, the simplicity, I think, is more important than like the ballot language. Like the ballot in and of itself, that is going to be the necessary simplicity. And I do think that having this have a few additional words that gives us the ability to allocate those funds to what our community is unilaterally saying is very important. And that is a comprehensive bike and ped transit, in addition to healthy and in good shape roads, I think will likely help in the conveyance of information. So Steve, thank you for bringing that this evening. And I will, let's see, Counselor Kaup has one more. Are you good, Counselor Kaup? Okay, great. We already have a motion. We already have a second. Okay, great. Then let's call the question. I thought you were wanting to talk. Okay, great. Thanks all. You're voting down? You're not supporting this. Okay. There's always gotta be one.
It passes 6-1 with Counselor Kaup voting against.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Moving on to council comments. I'll start with the first person who wants to visit. Okay, Counselor Kaup, do you have anything for council comments? No. Okay, I will. Oh, that makes sense. I will go ahead and move on then to report. I'm going to actually add mine. And that is that today during the work session, we added on a new work session for an upcoming meeting to discuss the structure of our boards and commissions, to add on a youth representative to the majority of our boards that we're in a position to do. And I'm very excited about that. Today, I also visited with a young girl who is a senior at Yampa, Angelia, who would like to join our transportation commission. So in the interim, I would like to make a motion for an ad hoc member just until we finalize the language. I've confirmed with Steve or with Carl Hanlon that that's okay. And I'd like to add her effective immediately, just in the interim until we restructure those boards to allow youth member. So, Counselor Gotis.
I think that there was enough general consensus that we wanted to go this direction with all of our boards. But if we tweak it or whatever, the fact that it's ad hoc would
Mhm.
lead me to second your motion.
Thank you. So I have a motion and I have a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So that was a unanimous approval. And I thank you guys so much. I'm excited with her energy and enthusiasm, and she is ready to be at the meeting at 7:30 on the first Tuesday of the month. So any 17-year-old who's willing to do that, I think is going to be a great new member. So moving on to report from city administration, our city manager, Steve Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one quick thing. You've noticed that the dividers for the screens up here are gone. The plan is I want to upgrade the tables that we use for work sessions and stuff a little bit and see if we can get it into a little bit of an oval to shrink the footprint a little and then store them here. So we'll probably cover those up with, you know, something on the outside, and we'll probably put a whiteboard on the outside of that one. So that's why those are gone. We're going to keep the chairs, I think, but we're going to get them cleaned because they're a little bit dirty.
Mhm.
And we'll clean up the carpet and stuff just in an effort to
Great.
maintain chambers.
Yeah, excellent. Carl Hanlon.
Did you want to provide any update on DC?
Hmm.
Okay.
We could. Yeah, let's provide an update on DC. So while let's see, Steve Boyd, Carl Hanlon, Mark Odem, and I all went to DC. We were able to visit with the BLM, the Department of Transportation, Senator Hickenlooper, and Senator Bennett. They were all gracious and welcoming and very receptive to hearing things that we felt were important to share for the city of Glenwood. We had really good visits, and as usual, Sustainable Strategies, our consultants out there, helped arrange really smooth meetings. We felt, like I said, welcomed, and I feel like the agenda items that we brought to the table, they were all super supportive of. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I would just say that really have, you know, 2 or 3 focuses of this trip. One, the continuing battle with the mine. And so we did get a meeting with the BLM director, Tracy Stone Manning, and Deputy Assistant Director, Dr. Felgus. I thought that was a really productive meeting. I thought particularly the conversations on the TIFIA program regarding potential funding for city projects was, again, really helpful. And then Senator Bennett in particular, I think really latched on to a couple of things that we have been leaders on in terms of Glenwood Springs, particularly in the moment, the Uinta Railroad. And I have a follow-up call with the senator next week to dig into that a little more deeply on the amicus briefs. So I think all of those things, it wasn't a big going out and asking for money this time, but it was going out and asking and talking about really important issues for the community that are really out there and threatening in terms of both the mine and the Uinta rail line. So I really appreciate the senators and the BLM and DOT for that. With that, we're in a kind of a time, you know, we're really, there's going to be a lot more activity. You're going to see a lot more public activity, I think, around the Shoshone acquisition as they're trying to really ramp that up and apply some pressure. And so there may come a time when we're going to be asking for individual letters or letters from council to support for grant applications and things like that. We've already provided some of that, but there may be some additional lobbying to try to finalize that transaction because we have kind of a window to get that completed. With that, I have nothing further. Thank you.
Yeah. I feel like Senator Bennett in particular was super supportive of the Shoshone acquisition, and we felt as though when we were out there that we were advocating for all of Western Colorado for those rights that, you know, what we mentioned at that time was that for 7 million plus years, the Colorado River has run west, and we would like to keep it that direction, and keep it as, you know, it's a preservation, not an acquisition. This is, you know, the water that 40 million Americans use for their potable water. And while we don't use it for that, it's obviously economically and just ecologically incredibly important for our community, and being able to advocate on behalf of our Western Slope neighbors felt really good. Yeah, it was a really, you know, I felt like we felt heard. Yeah, so, did you have a question, Councilor Curtis?
I did not make a comment, but if you could allow me.
Yep.
quick comment. So ballots go out October 14th, which is 22 days before November 5th. So that's less than a month from now. And historically, we have taken positions, this council has taken positions on issues, state, local, regional, that are on ballots that pertain to Glenwood Springs. So I guess I would encourage everybody to do some research, maybe before the next meeting, and then direct staff to put on anything that we think that we see on the ballot that maybe we should be letting our public know, hey, this is going to be good and this is why we need you to vote for this, or this is why you do not need to vote for this. I don't think we should take, there's questions on there about abortion, there's questions about whatever. If we feel we should weigh in on those, great, but there's other issues that will directly impact us and our operations that might be more appropriate. So I would encourage everybody to take a look at that ballot and those questions, and for us to take positions on things that are important to our residents.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay, with that,
Can I make a comment?
please do.
All right, thank you. Written comments, for and against for the ballot issue notice are due to me tomorrow by noon. So for more details, and guidelines on this, please let me know. If anyone, public or you guys, anybody wants to submit one, just send it to me tomorrow by noon.
Is this for the blue book?
Yes.
And at this point, do we have comments on for both an opposition and support?
We have one comment so far.
Okay. Thank you. Council social event.
Thank you. We will reconvene at Doc Holidays tonight.
Okay. Very good. I will look for a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
In a second.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Okay.
That was an easy second.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. Have a great night.
See you there, Shelley.
Yeah.
Have fun at Docs.
Thanks. We'll miss you.